Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you all here today. Please make sure that when you come into the room that you tell us where you're from, and if you and how you're doing. If you want to talk about your weather, whatever, we are here from opposite ends of the earth today. Welcome to Lipedema Wellness Conversations with Gail. That would be me, and friends. That would be Jill Harvey. Gillian, I am on the ice cold, like ice cold belt of Idaho. And here in the United States, it is frigid. We've been below zero for the last week and a half. And Jill, not below zero Fahrenheit, below zero centigrade. We've been below freezing. That's what I want to say. Not below zero here, but we've been down into what here on Fahrenheit is the teens. Over the last couple of weeks, there's no snow, there's nothing, it's just frigid. And Jill is moving her way into summer. She's in Melbourne, Australia. Hi, Jill. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well, except that Melbourne is notorious for having very confused weather. It's 7 degrees centigrade out there earlier this morning when I was out there. So that's not super warm.
No.
I have to do the calculations. And on the weekend, we're nearly 30. So we're less than a third of the temperature. There's a lot of chat about the weather. It's like, this is not fair. Oh, here we go, Washington.
Yeah,
Wonder how
Washington.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hello, Marilee.
yeah, and she was when I saw her yesterday on Miranda, she had fog. So she does the exercises. She moves out to her porch, her back porch. I think it's her back porch, and you could see the trees, and the trees are all encased in fog because
Wow.
she's over by the coast, closer to the coast than I am. So I just want to. Oh, and Jane's here from Newfoundland, and Stina is here. She's on the eastern east. I call it the East Coast. Anything, anything east of the Rockies is the East Coast. And if Jill doesn't know where the Rockies are, that's kind of like not the East Coast.
No, I think that's a lot. That's east. That's like 2/3 of the country.
Yeah, and Stina's
Yeah. Oh,
from
snow. We had
Massachusetts.
hail yesterday. It was
Yeah,
like
it's crazy
crazy.
right now, isn't
It's
it?
crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
However, I know that we're only going to be here. We're not going to be here very long. It's really important for us to get to talk to Jill um, because she is one very busy woman. I will tell you right now, she's a coach for Lipedema Simplified, but in Australia, she does this crazy thing called running political campaigns. So
Yeah,
they're in the middle of an election cycle, it
we
appears.
are. We've had the federal, or for us Commonwealth, earlier this year, and our state is now having the state election. And for people in certain areas, they have had the trifecta and have had a local government election too. But I think, and people say, why are you engaged in this stuff? I said, because health we don't want it to be. It should be above politics, shouldn't it, really?
Right.
But it is political because money is finite. And I think, especially when we look at lifestyle disease, and also, as with the lipedema community, people who have lifelong chronic conditions where if they're not able to access the right health supports, we can see the condition progress and become more serious. And, we know there are women in our community who now are classified as disabled because their mobility is impacted so profoundly. And there's a cost to that. There's a profound cost as an individual, but there's also a cost to communities and eventually to governments. So, yeah. in book club, we looked at Ashton Applewhite's "This Chair Rocks," the manifesto about ageism, and she talks about universal access and universal design. And the whole point of it is that when we make our world accessible for everyone, well, that's the thing, is we make our world less as accessible for people who are less able. We make it accessible for everyone, regardless of life stage or mobility, all that type of thing. So important. And again,
Yeah,
that's part of the journey for so many of our women is looking at their own household environment, and the idea of, as we age and if the disease progresses and we lose mobility, how are we going to navigate our own space?
right,
Yeah.
right. I was talking to somebody the other day about I've become more and more aware of mobility issues, not necessarily my own mobility issues, but of those around me. For example, here in the United States, we have laws that say that public buildings have to be accessible, but the definition of accessible, I think, is I think that there's certain things that have to happen, like we have to have wheelchair ramps, right? We have to have
Mm-hmm.
handrails and things like that. But I walked into a building the other day up short little steps. I only had to take 3 short steps and I could go into the building. But the person I was with could not navigate those steps. And she wasn't in a wheelchair. So she had to go up the ramp. And the ramp went all the way across the building and then all the way back across the building. So she
Yeah.
literally had to walk like 10 times farther than I
Mm-hmm.
did. There were
Mm.
no benches for her to rest on, but she was the one who couldn't navigate the stairs, so she had to take the long way. And she's not in a wheelchair. And it really made me aware of how sometimes there are certain spots, like blind spots, in these laws. We think, well, this building is accessible. Well, the building was accessible, but not really to her, right? I mean, it was such a difficult journey for her to get to the front door,
Mm.
where if she was in a wheelchair or a scooter, she could have made it, or someone could have I mean, I couldn't even like push her, I couldn't even help her. She had to make
Mm.
that journey by herself. And it really opened my eyes to just like you say, is it accessible to all? Well, maybe not, so we have to look at those things when we when we start talking about healthcare for all, accessibility for all, and those sorts of things. That there's a lot of stuff that we don't quite see because there are gaps in that.
There certainly are. There certainly are. And, health budgets, I think, probably across the world are under pressure. I
Hmm.
know in Australia, for our national or federal level, it's one of the fastest growing budget areas. So,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
And so
So,
you're working a campaign, and you're going to be done in a couple of weeks. When
yes.
is when is the election?
The election is Saturday, the 26th of November. So, it would be around Thanksgiving time for the US. Is that right?
Right. Right. That is right.
Yeah.
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 So you're very busy. And I am grateful for the half hour that you're giving me today.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it down to
It's a
a half
pleasure.
hour. So it's and like Julie Rosa is here, and she's from California, and we see her quite often, and she says, "Thank you, wonderful ladies, for what you are covering today."
Thanks
And
for being here.
yeah,
Yeah.
Camarillo, California, and it is
And
a
that would be
beautiful.
Gail, definitely not the East Coast.
No, no, that's the other direction.
Yeah, it's
Um,
the other side of the Rockies.
It's this other piece. But one of the things that I do know, Julie, she's often with us in our on these broadcasts, and she comes to a lot of the things from Tribe. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put up Jill's email in case there are anybody, if there's anybody here who wants to throw messages her way. I've put it up. It's pretty easy. Um, it's always the same old, same old. Her first name and lipedema-simplified.org. So if there are any questions that come up today and you want to reach out to Jill for an answer or a comment, or just to send her some loving, because I'm looking and we have 23 people on right now. I have no hearts. I have no thumbs up. What's up with that? Come on, ladies. Come on, gentlemen. Whoever's listening to me out there, you better start smashing that button. We need some loves and hearts and thumbs up. And Julie puts them in her post, but I want to see them. There we go. We got a heart. Okay.
Beautiful.
One of the things when we first started, you said, "What are we going to talk about today?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It's up to you." And that's pretty much how I want to roll with this. Jill, if there was something that you really want to discuss today or have a chat about, what would it be?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this as we were chatting earlier. I think there's a couple of themes. Well, probably three really. Is dogma in the keto world, and I think that's really confronting for our community, for women who are new to keto or new to low carb. What's really interesting, and part of that is this conversation I find that I'm having with everyone in consults at the moment is shades of grey. Like there's this perfect world, the ideal, perfect keto, perfect exercise, perfect sleep hygiene, perfect sleep every night, utopia. And then there's real life. And in between, life we live in the shades of grey. People say, "Oh, I had 5 great days and then I fell off the wagon for a day." And it's like, hey, but look at that. That was still like 5 out of 6. So, and I guess part of that is also taking your little wins and acknowledging them, because I think it's very, it's motivating if you give yourself that recognition, saying, hey, this maybe not perfect, but 80-20 rule, if we can get 80% right, it's, we still have the potential for dramatically improved outcomes compared to if we didn't have any tools.
Right.
It's easy to say if we weren't even trying, but the thing is, I think people are trying all the time, but so often we see they're not equipped with tools of how to look after themselves. We see this so much here with lipedema.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And I want to let you know that Justine Brooks is here. Hi, Gillian, fellow.
Hey, Cassie. Now you guys have got to be even colder than us. Is it freezing there? You can just like post some little icicles and snowflakes. Because like Tasmania is further south than Melbourne. So if we're cold, they're probably going to be colder.
Yes,
Yeah.
we always think of as we always here in the United States, we think of South as getting warmer. When
Yeah.
you're in Australia, South is getting colder.
Yeah. And Patty's saying, I wish I could sleep at night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Here's Jessica from Canberra, and it snowed. There you go. So much for summer, guys. Hey,
I know.
it's like, yeah. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
That's quite cold. And then we have Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. I'm
Yeah.
getting good with my American states now.
Yeah,
Um,
it's I still have to go back to my 5th grade geography class and picture, um, but I know that we had a whole thing because and Mary Lee Mangle is like cold in Boise. That's right, because
yeah.
I'm in Cuna, she's in Boise. We're like 11 miles from each other, and it's cold
And you
here.
see, I know how I heard someone the other day say Boise, and I said, no, it's Boise. I know how to say it properly now.
Good
There
for
we
you.
go. Yeah.
They even have a song that says there's no Z in Boise.
Yeah.
Anyway, so So when we talk about this dogma that's happening in the
Mm.
keto world and the carnivore world and this whole thing,
Ooh, yes.
oh, yeah,
You
right?
ate a plant, you drank coffee, that's a plant. You
Oh my
drank
gosh,
wine, that's a plant.
I drink coffee, it's a plant,
You're
right?
lactose intolerant and you still drink coconut milk? That's
Oh,
shocking.
I know it is
Yeah,
shocking.
so but yeah, and you see, that's why I call myself cyclical carnivore. Sometimes I will have, a carnivore meal in a day.
Mhm.
Sometimes I have a carnivore day. Sometimes I have a carnivore week. I don't usually go really, really long time,
Yeah,
but and I think that's okay. And I talk with clients and they go, I really have to stay carnivore, but it's really hard. I say, all right, let's look at why you have to stay carnivore.
yeah,
So, and the flip side is sometimes I've got people who are, because I do it, hello, welcome from the world's allergy capital. So much work with allergies. And, in our community, we notice definite sensitivities, patterns of sensitivities with women with lipedema. The dairy, not always our best friend.
no,
No.
and
Soy,
ooh, yeah,
nah.
and sometimes it really depends on the dairy.
Yeah.
For me, I can handle a good hard, cheese, like a super aged Parmesan. It's
Mm.
17 or 20 months or whatever aged Parmesan. It doesn't affect me whatsoever. Even a sharp cheddar is fine with me. But then cream cheese or cream or
Yogurt.
yogurt,
Yogurt.
something like that
Yeah.
could be causing me some issues. And so
Mm.
that's where the whole N equals 1, I'm gonna do an experiment on myself happens, and sometimes even then, I don't really recognize what's causing me issues until I've been eating it quite a while, then I'm like, "Oh gosh, I'm bloated. Maybe I need to back off the dairy a little bit," and then I do better, or I
Mm.
do something crazy like, potato soup. Now, okay, so it's cold, so there's this thing called soup weather,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
right?
like, my husband wants to cook soup in the summer and going, "It's just not
Yeah,
working for me." And the same thing as eating salad in winter. It's like, "No, I want something warm and
you're right.
cozy," and yeah,
So,
especially after I came home from being outdoors a couple of hours this morning, it's like, yeah, I need hot drink, hot food. So
right.
much for that salad weather that lasted like a weekend.
Right. I know, there's never salad weather in my house for me. It's like, it's gonna have to be really I don't know what would make it salad weather for me, but I'm a soup weather person. And so I make a potato soup, but I don't use potatoes, I use cauliflower. And it's full of bacon and ham and and all the things that make a wonderful white creamy chowder food, right? And I love it. But then I find out that after I ate like a bowl today and a bowl yesterday that cauliflower kind of gives me gas. And I'm like, okay, my husband's like, ooh, can you make some more of that? And I'm thinking, yeah, but I'm not going to eat it. So, I have to decide what it is that I'm going to eat. And so I
Do you put some dairy through too, just for the bonus? Yeah.
Yes. So here's the thing, I could have been really good and made it with, like, coconut milk or, but I meh.
Look,
So
I like coconut, but it's not for everything.
no, it's not for everything, and
It's
so
not
what
for a
I
cup of tea, I'll tell you that much. It's pretty vile.
no, so what I did was I, used, um, homemade bone broth, the chicken
Beautiful.
multi-bone broth. I can't just be say chicken because we have a bag that we just throw all the bones in, right? So it's homemade bone broth, and then, I used sour cream to give it that richness, and then I dropped in a brick I mean, I made a big batch. I dropped in a brick of cream cheese, and then
Aha.
lots of pepper. lots of
What's that
salt,
recipe? People are
lots
doing it in the
lots of
slow
pepper.
cooker. Cracked chicken with
Yeah,
just like chicken and cream cheese.
crack chicken.
Yeah,
Yeah,
crack chicken.
crack
Yeah.
chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
most
it's interesting from dairy because I talk to people, because I think for a lot of us, it's more the intolerance spectrum than the allergy spectrum. Like, we're not going to get an itchy mouth, but, we might get gas, bloating, maybe a bit of congestion, get a bit sinusy. But
yeah,
it's, yeah.
yeah,
But I say to people, what's really interesting is experiment with the highest fat forms of dairy first, like your ghee or butter. Ghee is even more clarified. Because if we look at the allergenic components of dairy, it's either going to be the carbohydrate, which is lactose,
right.
or it might be the protein, which is the casein. So, just like we've got that pie chart of what the percentage is in butter, the percentages of those components are much, much lower than other forms of dairy. So, but yeah, and then it's just navigating sort of what does and doesn't work. But my days of just downing a glass of milk for fun over. That's gone.
Right.
So, and I'm not inclined to down a glass of coconut milk either. So that's
Yeah.
just sort of fills the gap. I'm looking, oh, here we go. We've got more weather. Dawn has had snow. Patty is going to have snow in Maine tomorrow. Julie's been at I'm guessing the hydrotherapy pool, 82 degrees in my head because I'm metric. Seems awfully warm.
Actually,
But
82 degrees is very warm. Um,
okay.
it's what we would consider balmy.
Yeah.
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 So, that's wonderful. But, Julie's in Southern California, so she will it'll get cooler for her, but not,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not too many.
Yeah. So I looked up, I actually, somebody's done this. I love how, the internet brings all these crazy ideas together. I looked up and said, what climate in the US is the most similar to Melbourne, Australia? And they said San Jose.
Oh,
So
nice.
hello to
Yeah.
California.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found that fascinating. Yeah, there we go. Julie's having a chat about her wetsuit top and bottom. Oh, there you go. Yeah, compression, lovely. And if you're doing things like body surfing, a little bit of buoyancy.
Oh, yeah.
Why you can't compete in it. It's not FINA approved. But that's all right. Are we competing? This is not a competitive forum.
Are you
No.
wait a minute. Did you say body surfing? You're a competitive body
Yeah.
surfer?
No. There's competitive swimming. You're not allowed to have things that make you float in competitive swimming.
Yeah.
But for body
Oh,
surfing.
yeah.
But
I was gonna say, I just
hey, top secret, fat makes us float too.
oh my gosh. So I want to go back to that. I made a pot of chicken chili modified for keto, but it has some dairy. Loved every spoonful, but then realized it's too rich. Considering no dairy December to see how you manage. I've done no dairy challenges. That's what I call them. A month. I just challenge myself for a month to see how I do. And I did one year I did a no dairy September, and I made it like a week. And then I did a no dairy December, and I made it through the whole month of December. And
Even with Christmas and everything.
I would find myself getting ready to put something in my mouth, and I'd look at it going, "You are cheese." And
I've seen you with your chunks of butter, Gail.
you have not.
I
Um,
have. I
you have.
have seen you with
Um,
chunks of butter.
now see that, but when I do a no dairy challenge, I don't. I write the rules, so I
I
don't. So butter is not against the rules because I have to write the rules, right? I mean, you make your own challenge, write your own rules. That's what I say. So butter is butter, and it is not dairy.
it's its own food group,
It's
maybe?
own butter is my
Yeah.
baby. My baby.
Now, I've got a question about the chili chicken because too rich is interesting. And you see, this is if I was in concert, I'd want to unpick this.
Okay,
Was it the dairy, or maybe was it the chili? Because I know for me, I was a really refluxy type person, and I know that spicy foods are a huge trigger. So it depends what the symptoms were as to which component. That's the hard thing with multi-component dishes. I mean, most of them are really, unless we just go, yep, slab of steak, knife,
yeah,
salt,
right.
that is all. There's no confusion there. But
And
yeah,
chicken,
sometimes part of it is unpicking which component of the meal was the problematic component.
yeah, and chicken chili is often here in the United States. A chicken chili can be a white chili, so it would have your cream and and um, so more of a
Yeah.
white. It has a white sauce to it,
Hmm.
and a lot of times, it'll have the green chilies and the white sauce, and so it's a often it's white. Although some people use chicken, like a ground chicken or something like that, in a red chili. So, and that wouldn't have your dairy in it. So anyway, let me see if I can find
Post
something.
up Julie's comment. I like that.
Julie's last one, this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just exercise, no competition or anything for me. Just thrilled to be moving. I float very well because of lipedema. Yeah. So when my kids were little, I would go out into the deep end, and they wouldn't know how deep the deep end was because the water was always right here, regardless of how deep it was. The water always hit me here. I was just like a bobber, like a floating head. That's how. I mean, I won a um, water treading contest because
Oh, wow. There you go.
I
You
just
can be
bob.
competitive.
I put my arms above my head, I would sink. I put my arms down in the water, and I would just bob right back up. So
There you go.
I never had to tread water because
I couldn't swim backstroke until I got more floaty. Let's just put it that
oh,
way. I really struggled with backstroke. Now I enjoy it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I love this. B It says, "Butter and parmesan should not be counted as dairy," and that's from Juanetta.
Oh, hi, Juanetta.
I
Now, is
love it.
Juanetta in Alaska? I'm
She's in
trying to remember.
Alaska, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, so,
I just can't even fathom the weather. Their spectrum of weather so different from ours.
right. I think
Yeah.
that the last time I talked to Juanetta, I think she was warmer than we were. But here in Idaho, in the space in Idaho that we're at, it's very dry. The sky is cloudless. I mean, it is blue sky, and it is icy cold. And it's just that there's no moisture in the air holding in the heat. Right? So it is just icy cold, and every now and then we get we get this, and then we get what's called an inversion layer, where the smoke from the chimneys and stuff will stay low, and we'll get a layer of air on top of it, and then we never see the sun for like 3 weeks because all we can see is like gray. So that it's this part of Idaho. We get this pocket of cold air. Let's see, what else do
Mm,
we have here?
there we go.
Oh, she says Vanetta said it's 27 and sunny, very seasonable. Yeah, I know, and Vanetta, we were down in the teens. It's don't talk about the inversion. Mary, Mary from Boise. Don't talk about the inversion. I know. We don't want to curse.
All I can say is that I prefer my version of 27. 27 centigrade is almost perfect.
Oh, I know, right?
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful weather. Yeah. But speaking of grey, I think yeah, part of this conversation is this shades of grey in life. This thing
Yes.
of the perfect keto. And I think I know I find myself, so people say, oh, should I exercise in the morning? Should I exercise in the evening? Should I do this? Should I do that? Which compression? I'm struggling with this aspect of keto. And I think we say, the exercise that's good for you is the exercise that you can sustain. So,
Yes.
something, if it's sustainable, is better than nothing because it was all too hard. And, we just don't like stuff. I think I've stopped getting gym memberships because I just don't like the gym.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. But you can do muscle, you can do resistance training at home. And that's something I really got into over lockdown. That was the silver lining of lockdown, a good learning to have. The same thing with food is, so the low carb family actually goes up to 130 grams of carbs. I
Wow.
know, keto people, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. I got this funny, I've lost it now. It's super, super insanely, the air is just full of stuff because of the moisture, and we had that bit of heat and everything's just gone. Spores and pollen and I'm not usually a hay fever person, but I think even the best of us are a bit sneezy at the moment. So what we're saying, so that 130 grams would freak out your average keto person.
Well,
But
it
that's the low carb
does.
family. But
But,
compared to our old lives, where especially if we had a sweetened beverage habit, that's what, 3, 4, 500 grams of carbs per day. That's a lot
well,
in
I
comparison.
raised right. I raised my family, and I laugh about it and I'm sad about it at the same time. So do not think that I think this is really funny. I think it's scary. But I raised my family. We used to buy 25-pound bag of sugar a month, and we had a great big, huge, like 5-gallon bucket we'd pour it into. Um, and so let's just say if we're talking about metric, a 5-gallon bucket is 20 liters, right? Because
What is it?
there's
I think a litre is about a quart, isn't it? Is
right,
that
and a
right?
gallon is
Yeah.
4 quarts, so it's like 20
Mm.
liters, right? And
Mm.
I'd pour that sugar into that 5-gallon bucket, and we'd scoop it out, and we use 2 cups, so, a half a liter, I guess, is 2 cups, and I would put that in, and we'd make 2 or 3 batches of Kool-Aid or lemonade a day, and I was just, like,
Wow.
putting it in a funnel and pouring it down, and because that's what we ate. We everything. I made muffins and cookies, and I did all of that all the time, and my kids, my husband, and I were just it was just the way of life for us.
But we wean our kids these days, and this is because of the products that are out there as baby food. And again, it's part of this convenience trap. Like, who's this
Right.
really convenient for? Like, yes, it is convenient because, you know, and kudos to my mum is she'd do the whole homemade stuff and it had liver in it. What a great start to life. Which is probably why I don't mind the flavour of liver because I was introduced to it really young.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly in Australia, our big national consumer watchdog has gone after some of the baby food producers for deceptive health claims. And it's because
Wow.
of purely how much sugar is in their products that they're saying is healthy for babies or healthy for 6 months. So, and you look at a real youngster being weaned onto what's relatively sweet food, all these fruit purees,
Mhm.
they're just developing that palate for sweetness.
Yeah. And,
And then we're set for life.
yeah, yeah. And, for me, it was crazy because I never had breast milk ever. My mom made my first formula, and it was made out of Karo syrup and canned milk.
Oh, wow.
So I had corn syrup and canned milk was my very first meal, and for the first couple of years of my life, that was what was in my bottle, and so we didn't even and my mom was so happy when I had my little ones. Now my oldest one's 41 years old, and when I had him, my mom said, don't bother breastfeeding. They make such good formulas now. So I never breastfed. I just started right off the bat. She was the one I would turn to for support because in the 80s we didn't have I was new in area and we're in a rural area. I just did what mama told me to do. I did it almost the same way. And so and she used to mix up powdered milk and put it in the store-bought container. We did the same thing because we lived 27 miles out of town. So we used powdered milk, but we always added a little sweet to it, But yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I was that's how I was raised. I was started off on sugar. And so when I look back at it, and I wasn't considered pre-diabetic until I was 50 55, 56 years old. I am surprised. I am surprised.
That was a
And
lifelong journey for you
yeah, and
to
so
to get to that point. It was your
when
whole
I was
life.
right, and
Mm.
I was 340-ish pounds when I at my heaviest. But yes, I was 57 when I gave up grain and sugar. I've never looked back. I mean, it was 5 years ago in October. I never looked back because I'll tell you, the way I feel is so good, you
Mm.
know? And granted, like you said, over 100 grams of carbs seems like a lot, but I know how much I was having before. And I remember when I first started going off grains, I lowered it to 45 grams per meal 3 times a day was my first, and then I went to 15 grams 3 times a day. And these were net grams. And now I don't even know. I don't track anything, but I don't have I have very few grams of carbohydrates in the
Mm.
house. You know,
And you've actually brought up another really interesting debate is the whole total versus net carbs. And
oh
this is a contrast between America and certainly Australia and Europe, but we could actually just say America and the rest of the world, maybe. A bit like metric. But so your labeling has got total carbs, and then you have to subtract the fiber to get net. But in Australia, we have available carbohydrates, of which a little sub line under that, of which however much is sugar. And depending on the product, they may or may not mention fiber. But you see, and maybe it was Juanetta, but there's a comment saying some marketed keto is so scary looking, like a trap of sweets, salty snacks, glycemic overload. And this really dovetails into this conversation about the whole net carbs thing. Is I think the game that a lot of these products are playing is just having fiber cancelling out the available carbs. So the interesting thing, fiber is a carbohydrate, but it's not accessible to our body. It's only accessible to the gut, the bacteria in our gut. So theoretically, we shouldn't be getting a lot of energy from it. And what's really interesting, because I hear very few people when we talk about gut health, they don't finish the journey. They go, you need fiber. And again, this is a really interesting debate, isn't it, Gail?
Oh,
You
yeah.
need fiber. You need fiber because fiber is good for your gut. And it's sort of like, but why? We need to finish the last part of that journey because the microbiome actually converts that fiber into short chain fatty acids, which is what our body really loves. So fatty acids is basically fats, and short chain means, I guess for these macros, the chain we're talking about is how many carbon molecules. So this is relatively short, and we've got the coconut oil, which is medium chain, that type of thing. So that's really interesting, that the thing that our body really loves that it gets from fiber is fat. So fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And speaking with you always fascinates me because you being a nutritionist and you focusing on all these things and delving down and helping people figure out what they need to eat always blows my mind because I'm like, Oh, here, if you look at the internet, when we talk about keto, like you say, here we now have shades of gray, right? People say, as long as you stick to 20% this and 5% this and 75% fat, you're going to be fine. And we all go, what? There's
Well, yeah, and this is part of this thing of equipping people with tools of, if you ask me what my ratios of my macros were for the last month, I would say I have absolutely not the foggiest. No idea. Because in order to have any idea, I would have had to have logged everything that went in my mouth.
right. Yeah.
Everything, including drinks. Well, so like any drink that wasn't water, like a bulletproof, that's
Yeah.
going to contribute to my fat macro. So this is the thing, and I think we try, here at Lipedema Simplify, we truly try and make things workable for people.
Right.
So, and also the other thing about tracking, in order to track, you've got to measure, and then we get back into that whole diet culture of
Right.
counting, measuring, tracking. And I did track for a week, and I noticed myself as sort of like, oh, I'm allowed X many grams of protein, therefore my dinner will be this. And that was the stage when I realized that mayonnaise, my love of mayonnaise, I must have French blood in me somewhere. I adore sauces and condiments. And I talk to clients about it and they go, yeah, that's not a big issue. And I go, oh, yeah, for me it is. I love this stuff, all the dressings, all the sauces, all the condiments. And, they can trip us up. And we don't think about it because it's not the major component of a meal. It's just the bonus.
Right. It's
So
a bonus. I love it.
bonus.
Mayonnaise is a bonus. I love it. My kids used to say to
I,
me, my mom doesn't think mayonnaise is a condiment. She thinks mayonnaise is a side dish. Because I would go,
yeah.
oh, a little bit more over here, a little bit more.
Mm.
But now that I make my own mayonnaise, I look at it and I'm like, well, I count it as a fat because, and I don't count. Don't get me wrong, I don't count anything. I call it a fat. It's kind of like butter, butter and mayonnaise.
It's own food group.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I love that the mayonnaise that I make is only eggs, oil, and vinegar, right?
Mhm.
A little bit of salt and or mustard or whatever. But yeah, it's all it is. And so I'm like, there's nothing in it that's bad. There's no, and I make deviled eggs and I make egg salad, and all it is eggs and oil, eggs and oil, eggs and oil, right? And a little bit of vinegar to make. And I'm like, I love that about keto. I love that about, I mean, I call it carnivore because when you think about it, oil is
Oh,
just
look,
out
and there
there.
are the carnivore mayonnaise dressings where people are using dripping and
Oh yeah.
yeah, different. There we go.
I
That was
made I made bacon mayonnaise one time.
how was it?
It it okay, so if you put it in the refrigerator, it gets really hard because bacon grease
Yeah.
solidifies, right? But it was kinda like next to heaven just to eat. So I really had to be careful, but I have tested so many different ways, but there are some things I haven't been able to test myself on yet, like pickled pork fat. Now I know that sounds crazy, but Siobhan Huggins
I
makes a
was going to say, this is a Siobhan thing, isn't it? I'm pretty sure I've
yeah,
seen her tweet about it.
and she makes pickled pork fat. So she the way it's pickled, she seasons it with like cloves.
Ah,
So
okay.
it tastes like applesauce, like chunky applesauce. I'm like, there is no way
Wow.
pork fat could taste like chunky applesauce. There's just no way. I haven't tried it yet. But then she told me the other day that she makes pancakes with eggs and pork rinds. And she eggs, pork rinds, and beef tallow. Beef,
Ah,
no,
okay.
eggs, pork rinds, and lard, and she makes a savory pancake, and she goes, "They're fluffy and delicious," and I'm like, I don't think so."
I'm fascinated. You know what's really interesting is apart from having a bulletproof, I haven't broken my fast and it's nearly lunchtime. This conversation's making me hungry.
Oh,
If
sorry.
anyone else feeling hungry, here there was a question about does the body do that with psyllium and Metamucil? Yeah, yeah. I mean, in theory, yes, it would. Although I find psyllium, especially, what's the right word I would use? I don't want to use brutal, but it is a harsher form of fiber. And it's interesting because my colleagues and I were talking about it once, and there were three of us standing in a room, and we had one person said, basically, I have to have fiber, otherwise, for regularity. And the other person said, no, it's too much and it gives it absolute diarrhea. And then for me, it just completely glues everything up. So the whole fiber thing what I'm finding is it's really individual. And I'm finding what I call really commonly with patients and clients is what I sort of call the fiber trap, is that if 1 tablespoon of Metamucil is good, then 2 has got to be better. If anyone saw me with Sean, I had a glass which had Metamucil dissolved in it, and I just let it sit. And it's solid. You can tip, eventually it will just go solid. So an absolutely critical thing that has got to be a partner of fiber is the fluid to go with it. Otherwise,
Right.
literally, we're just putting more cars in the traffic jam. So,
Yeah,
and this is what I see is it's almost like people, just like with the fat soluble vitamins, because our body doesn't just excrete them, they build up. You can almost have an overdose of it, too much of a good thing.
right.
And this is what we see. And things like one of the famous Hemsworth brothers actually believes that he induced kidney stones by having an enormous green smoothie every morning because of all the oxalic acid or oxalates.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and again, carnivores would debate that greenery is essential, but I think the general paradigm is that most people need more vegetables in their diet, and I would call it conditionally essential. So if we have lots of refined carbohydrates where the fiber and all the nutrients got taken out, then it makes perfect sense that we'd need lots of other foods that are almost like an antidote to that have still got their fiber, still got their nutrients. But then if we take those refined carbohydrates out, I think the rules of the game change. And then if we take plant foods out of the diet altogether, the rules of the game change again. So, but
Yeah,
there can be. I've seen someone commenting about chaffles.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you
So,
say it. We call him in our family, we call him
do you call them?
Chago. We call him
Oh, do
Chago.
you? Chagos.
Chagos because they look like an Eggo waffle, but they're made with cheese. So
Okay. Well, I
Chagos.
was wondering if am I supposed to
And
actually call them choffles?
a
Because
lot
in
of people
Australia
call
we
them
would say waffles.
yeah,
But
it's a chaff
yeah,
I think most people call them chaffles, although it
yeah.
looks like chaffle, and
You see,
who
I don't do
knows?
it because it's my threshold for cheese. That's takes me way over it.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
they do have non, dairy, truffle recipes,
Hmm.
but I find that most of them they have the, almond flour in them, and so, they what I've discovered for myself is if I've given up the replacement foods, like, if I say, "Okay, I'm not gonna have truffles, and I'm not gonna have, um, fathead dough rolls, and I'm not gonna have all this other stuff," I'm happier because I'm not busy trying to replace bread. It's like this whole thing a problem the whole problem with keto is people are trying to replace bread, pasta, um,
Desserts.
tortillas, desserts. They're trying to replace all those things, and
Yeah.
we will go to the furthest degree to replace all those, and
Mm.
all we end up doing is adding really, truly adding a lot of refined foods.
And complexity. But the
Yeah,
thing is, and again, this is an evolution thing. Like we're all at different parts in our journey. And I was really interested to read in Dr. Sean Baker's journey is that he actually sort of mirrored, although he's a much more committed carnivore, he's not just cyclical. Started with so many of us started with paleo, and I know that the version of paleo I did was not particularly low carb because, gosh, sweet potato is a lovely thing. But yeah, and I think in the beginning we are trying to replace those foods that we feel that we're deprived of. But
right,
we all evolve and go, oh, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered going and finding low carb bread or baking it or whatever.
right.
Here, I'm just going to use this lettuce leaf and make a wrap out of a lettuce leaf. It's like,
Well, and
yay, that was so quick and easy.
right, and somebody said to me one time, "So, what do you put your peanut butter on if you're not putting it on bread?" And I said, "On my finger or my spoon?" And then I said, "Or my bacon?" And then I've actually gotten away from eating peanut butter for
Yeah.
whatever the reason, I just eat the
Was that a
bacon.
bit of a trigger food for you too? Nut butters?
Peanut butter and cream are tremendous trigger foods for me. Like I would cry if I didn't have peanut butter in the house. I would get just anxious. Like gritting my teeth and crying that we didn't get to the store that night so I couldn't have peanut butter the next day. It was really bad, you know?
Yeah.
And my favorite is not a good peanut butter. My favorite is that super duper creamy. I don't want the whole jar. I just want the top layer, the one that goes like this, and it's just ridiculous. It's so emotionally triggering for me. Peanut butter does that. Cream, we all know my story about cream. However, cream in my coffee is totally different than a little bit of whipped cream because I can just go and grab a spoonful of whipped cream and be fine. Put cream in my coffee, and it's like I will stand there with my cup of hot, whatever's left. Pour more cream in it, please. Pour more cream in it, please, all day long. Just keep reheating the
Mm.
cream, right? Add a little bit of coffee once in a while. Eat that. It's insane. And then I get edgy if someone crosses me about it. Like someone in my family says, "Geez, are we out of cream already?" Oh, blow up. And that's when I knew it was really a trigger because it's like, you can't talk to me. Don't ever ask me about the cream. I told my daughter,
Do you also say, I can give it up anytime I want?
don't judge me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty much, I'm gonna stop drinking cream tomorrow. Okay, mom, sure, whatever. Oh, I get so angry. I'm just
And
like,
and this is, I
problem.
think, are we allowed to say the addiction word? I would consider myself a
Yeah.
reformed sugar addict. It's hard. And I think it's actually harder because it's in your face all the time, every
Mhm.
holiday,
Yeah,
every festive moment. You can't drive down the road without, the ad on the bus stop,
I know,
eat
I
something
know.
sweet. So,
Well,
and again, I think we all have to, just assess how we can handle things. Can we just taper down our consumption? Can we do that? Or do we just need to go cold turkey and say,
right. Well,
the
and there
act
is
of just having a little bit of this, just starts the ball rolling again.
right, and, I can truthfully tell you that not with every single food do I have to abstain. That every single one of my trigger foods, not all of them do I have to abstain, and not in all of its forms. There are only certain like I say, it's cream in my coffee. I have cream in my house right now, but I abstain, right? I can do it because I haven't been drinking it lately. And
Mm.
we even made, whipped cream for the cheesecake for the birthday last 2 weeks ago, and it's a keto cheesecake, and it was non-sweetened with cream, and I did it. I had a little bit, didn't mean anything to me. in my coffee. So it's like the form, it's like it goes, it's a direct line. It's like, it's like I got a pick line with cream in it. And so I know that that's an addictive response for me. Something triggers in my brain. So I have to be an abstainer. Other things I
Mm.
can, other things I can moderate that are more triggery foods, but there are certain ones I cannot. It just has to be. I don't get it. That's it. So I think that there's some levels. Maybe I'm not a food addict. Maybe I have a problem food. I don't know. I don't know the true definitions. So
I think it
anyway,
lots of us.
okay.
And
So Jill, I am so sorry. I told you that I try to keep this under 30 minutes. I was I'm
it's
looking
lovely
at
to catch up, isn't it?
it is. I've
Um,
missed you.
oh, here's a quick question from Debbie. Is the keto diet the best to be on? For lipedema, I would say it is a very powerful solution. Keto is naturally diuretic, which is fantastic for anyone who has problem with fluid retention, as we do with lipedema. And since we were talking about weather, bring on something hot and humid. Oh my goodness, the fluid retention is just crazy. So naturally diuretic. It is one of the lowest inflammatory. So we were talking about language, a few of the coaches, in terms of this word anti-inflammatory, the lowest inflammatory diets, which again is really important because, that contributes to edema, the weight gain, the uncomfortable limbs. And then also, again, this is equipping people with tools is very sadly, I think the experiment was done with Xenical. We can't lose fat by excreting it. And in fact, all that was just not even letting us absorb it. And we know the side effects with that were pretty gruesome. Um, so we can't excrete fat. The only way we're going to lose fat is burning it. So how do we? So this is the irony, is that even though the rest of the world that talks about dieting, they're talking about strategies which at some stage are going to have to push us into burning fat and being a fat burner. So why not just be a fat burner and be in ketosis, be in
Right.
nutritional ketosis?
And her next
Um,
question
mm,
is, what about Weight Watchers? And I I want to answer a little bit about this one.
I
So
know they've evolved lately. I was
they
talking to
have,
someone about it. Yeah.
they have. So the reason I question it also is we need to focus back on what is the purpose of our food program. If our purpose is to lose weight and we only focus on losing weight, we're probably always going to be disappointed because we have lipedema. If the purpose is to gain health and to reduce our pain, our inflammation, our swelling, and to come up with the best way of nurturing our bodies, it's probably not going to be a program that somebody tells you have to eat this in this way. It's probably going to be a lot of experimentation, working with the nutritionist, and finding what foods you live best on, that love you most and that you love. That's that's where out of the last 5 years of my health journey, that's what I've discovered, helping others find what works for them. So, Weight Watchers, is it okay? I think it really is going to depend on what the program is and if you are successful in finding your own success with it. Is it going to help you lower your inflammation? Maybe, but it's going to really depend on how you do Weight Watchers.
mm.
So,
And I
Jill,
think also
yeah,
when there's that parallel between, and this is part of the power of keto when it's done as whole foods, unprocessed foods. So diet programs, and again, a person has a choice often when they engage with other diet programs of, am I going to eat their packaged processed food that is part of the diet? So that draws us back into that processed food thing. So, but I do know that there's a variety of, most programs are just not a one size fits all anymore. But I think we see that really all of us need to navigate, just as you said, Gail, what works for us as individuals.
Yeah, and we also need to remember that if a person's going to do a food program, they're focused, they're ready to make changes. They know that they have they're going to spend their money on the program. They're going to do everything they need to do, and are you going to go toward Weight Watchers and do that? Or are you going to talk to a nutritionist and do it that way? Or are you just going to fly by the seat of your pants? How are you going to do that? And that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons I bring Jill on here to talk. Jill is a nutritionist. She does work with Lipedema Simplified. You can throw her an email and she can get you, she can talk to you one-on-one, have a discovery session with you to see if what she has to offer you is what you want to, what you want to embark with. And not only that, we also have, and I'm going to put it in the comments. We also have a series coming up starting Monday. It's called Thriving Through the Holidays because we know how hard it is to get through the holidays. It starts on Monday. I just put the registration link right there in the comments because we're starting Monday, um, and if it's something you want to do, they'll take you through the holidays. Carrie Reedy is going to be there with me when we start it. Jill's going to be one of the facilitators. And let me put Jill's address in the comments. It's underneath our pictures right now. It's Gillian at Lipedema Simplified simplified.org. And let me make sure no, I did not spell it right. Simplified. I cannot believe I spelled it that way. Simplified. Gillian at lipedema-simplified.org. Okay, so I put her email in the comments also, and it's underneath our pictures here during the recording. And I do want you to know that Gillian's been working with us for about a year. She has helped many of our community members learn how to eat the way they want to eat, so that they're eating more non-inflammatory foods, so that they are finding reduction in pain, reduction in swelling, losing some weight. Some are sleeping better. Some are no longer dealing with headaches. She works not just with keto, but she talks about histamines with allergies, food sensitivities, everything you can imagine. And she teaches in a very simplistic way, so it's not all confusing. She's an amazing coach, always there to hold your hand as you go through this process. Her job, literally her job, is to work herself out of a job, to make sure you are successful, to make sure that you are independent in making your food choices, and always being there to give you a little nudge or give you a little bit of an answer. As a coach for Lipedema Simplified, she teaches courses with us. She does one-on-one coaching. She and Carrie have decided to start working in small group coaching. And it's just amazing to have a nutritionist on board with us. So, Debbie, I'm grateful that you asked those questions. Everybody, the comments are just phenomenal. Thank you so much for everybody being here. We have gone over time. We've gone 40, 50, 40 minutes over. I told Jill 20, 25 minutes. We'll be fine. We'll have plenty to talk about.
That's just the start.
I know.
We're just warming up then.
And some of you have been here the whole entire time. But I'll tell you, and those people who are watching us on the replay, please know that we are here for you. We are here for you. And you're not alone. There's always hope. And Jill will be back on another time because, she's
And
here.
if you're in the US, I'm here for you in the middle of the night because that's my daytime.
That's right.
That's
So as
it, yeah.
we're wrapping this thing up at 8:00 on the East Coast, 6:00 out here in Idaho. Jill's going, oh yeah, my day's just kicking it. So she's
It's
always,
lunchtime.
it's lunchtime.
It's breakfast time. I'm going to go do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Jill, thank you so much for being here tonight. Is there anything you want to leave our audience with tonight before you go?
Oh, just this is a great community to work with. And the great thing is I think we're solving so many of our own problems. We know that the options that are out there for us often feel very limited, that they're either surgical, and the other option for many disease states is pharmacological, and that's not really even an option for us. So, but I think there's some great work happening here in creating our own strategies and lifestyle supports that can get us functioning the best way we can.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for that, Jill. And I just want to reach out to Debbie. Debbie, we hear you that you lost over 100 pounds, but your legs seem to be getting worse. They're getting worse. And that's one of the way by reaching out to Jill. Make sure that you do. I'm glad that you're able to get her email, reach out to her and just touch base and see if she can help you with some of the stuff that you're dealing with that. So thank you guys. My love out to you. Jill, I adore you. It's been absolutely a pleasure being here tonight. And we shall see you next Tuesday, but it'll be Tuesday morning because our coach next Tuesday that we're going to talk to is in South Africa. And so we'll be meeting in the morning instead of in the evening. So with that, good night to everybody. Good afternoon. Have a great breakfast, Jill. I'll see you
I
next
will.
time.
See you next time.